So a frequent question I'm getting is, really what's going to happen with the economy? And while I don't pretend to be an economic expert, there's certainly some things that we can pay attention to, we can learn from the past. Now, one of the keys is that the normal economic cycle, has these up and downs, and you start to watch for these inflection points. You watch for, crossing over zero. You watch for, the heights and the depths, and we kind of know how to manage this. Even when you go to say 2008, um, and you look at the economic crisis. Of course, there was more depth and length to that drop, but the dynamic was still pretty well established. Um, Now, what we learned from the bullwhip effect and from system dynamics is that both delays and amplitude starts to have a longer term effect on how the system plays out. And certainly, we have the shock wave of say early 2020, followed by some of the recovery, and what's happening now as a reaction to all of the dynamics set by this, with high demand and supply chain challenges and labor shortages. So now we're doing this, and so the big question is, well, not just are we headed for recession, but how bad is it going to be? How big? How long? Etc. But the problem is there's lots of delays. People through this time period built up inventories. They stockpiled stuff. You have a lot of things that have not shaken out through the organization. So we have lots of delay, and we had lots of amplitude on the signal. And so you start to say, well, we can't just come back and hit a good number and then go off like this. More likely, we end up seeing things start to normalize, but have to go up and down a few times. So, if this is 21 and 20, the first half of 22, here's the second half of 22. Is this what 23 looks like, and 24 we're back here? Or will all this happen with a second wave by early 23? The point being is that we have to understand that these dynamics take a little while to work out, and we can't have a steep drop here and a steep spike here and then expect us just to normalize at some normal pattern after that. It takes a while for these dynamics to work themselves out in this pattern. So I do not pretend to predict exactly when these will happen or how deep they'll be. But it certainly looks like it will take a while for these dynamics to shake out. Now, that's just a broad economic standpoint, a broad economic lens. We have to remember that this is actually many sub-economies, many sub-dynamics that go on, right? So there's a market for oil that goes on. There's a different market for grain that goes on. There's even sub-markets for third shift workers that go on, and it's been very difficult to get off shift workers because there's so many jobs on day shift, and so you start to look at there's many different dynamics. And so in addition to understanding the system dynamics, which was my main point up here around the impacts of delay and amplification and how these impacts take a while to work themselves out, we also have to understand it at a granular, or sub-market level. We have to pay attention to the details of different aspects. We can't just look at the headlines and say the economy is doing well, the economy is doing poorly. How is my supply chain doing? How is my market doing? How are every aspect of my supply chain? I might have plenty of supply in one component and shortages in another. I might have price spikes in one and nothing happening in another. So we have to understand there's a lot of dynamics at play here, and so we have to pay attention more market by market, dynamic by dynamic, and at a granular level. So those are some of my thoughts about how we manage our economic fortunes going into the second half of, or well into already, the second half of 22, headed into 23 and 24. How do we plan? Well, we have to pay attention to the dynamics. And so I'd love your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think we need to pay attention to? What's the playbook? Thanks.